I have been dealing with thyroid issues for such a long time. And in 2021, when I found out I had Hashimoto's, I ended up being in bed for 2 months straight. 2 months straight. I could not get out. My anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't speak to anybody. I ignored phone calls, even my mother's, who most of you know I speak to every single day, and I'm super close with her. I couldn't even take her calls. I was in such a downward spiral that I didn't want to know from anybody, and all I wanted was my bed. And then I found out that the Hashimoto's was the major cause for the anxiety. So when I started to realize what I could do to take charge of my thyroid health, I started to feel better. It took me a while to get better, but I got better and I got stronger. It took me a couple of months, and I am still to this day, though, we're talking, 2 years later, struggling with balancing my thyroid. My antibodies are under control, which is when you Hashimoto's or you have higher antibodies, TPO and TG. You'll hear about that today from our guest, but I'm still struggling to balance my thyroid and to have it in the optimal range. So I'm excited about today's conversation because I'm speaking to Amie Hornaman, and she is an expert when it comes to thyroid health. But before I introduce her, I want to just ask you to please take a minute to fill out our menopause research surveys. We have 10 of them on our website, but the one I'm really focusing on, and I've mentioned it a few times, is our doctor's visit survey, as well as our programs and policy survey. So if you haven't filled those two out, please take a minute to do so. I put the link to both of them below. So for those of you who are new to my podcast, I'm Andrea Donsky. I'm a nutritionist for more than 19 years. I'm a menopause educator and menopause researcher. I'm also the co-founder of wearemorphus.com, a company that empowers you to take control of your health and symptoms with nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, and research. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Amie Hornaman, known as the Thyroid Fixer. She's a prominent figure in the field of thyroid and hormone optimization. She hosts the globally recognized podcast, The Thyroid Fixer, which has become a leading voice in medicine and alternative health. As the founder of the Better Thyroid and Hormone Institute, Dr. Amie believes that better thyroid and hormone health equates to a better life. I agree. Dr. Amie provides insightful, often overlooked health information, equipping her patients with the tools and personalized treatments necessary for recovery. She emphasizes a holistic point of view, focusing on optimizing thyroid and hormone functions beyond just lab values. By considering all factors that contribute to thyroid dysfunction and symptoms, Dr. Amie aims to not just treat, but to transform her patients, enabling them to embrace their full potential and lead healthier, more fulfilling lives. Now, here's Dr. Amie. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Amie.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm pumped to be here.
I love the topic of thyroid, and I have talked about thyroid a lot because I have my own thyroid issues. What should we be focusing on in terms of what to include, and then also things to be mindful of that can possibly make things worse for us?
So, the gluten debate, and I know you've covered this on the podcast too. It's one of those things that you'll inevitably have someone out there saying, "I can handle gluten. It doesn't bother me." And they're just speaking from the immediate reaction. So some people, when they eat gluten, you're going to know it. And especially once you start cleaning up your diet. And then if you are gluten, like at a restaurant, or, you just say, "Oh, you know what? Today I'm just going to eat the pizza or the pasta." I mean, my patients, they will be like, "Oh my God, I feel so horrible. I'm never doing that again." Because when you clean up your body from this very inflammatory protein molecule, then you can really notice the difference.
Yeah.
Now, totally different if you're overseas, by the way. I've had patients travel to Spain and Italy. They're like, "Oh my God, I can eat all the gluten in the world and nothing." But here in the US, where we have bastardized our wheat to the point of having literally being Franken wheat at this point, it's safe to say we all should be gluten-free, hands down. Now, if you have Hashimoto's, if you're autoimmune, that's non-negotiable, because every single time you eat gluten, you are destroying your thyroid gland. You are literally causing an inflammatory attack on your thyroid gland. And I guarantee you, the more you continue your habit of eating gluten, you will develop another autoimmune condition. And I can't tell you what it'll be. I mean, you might be lucky and just get rheumatoid arthritis, or you might be really unlucky and get MS or lupus. So why even roll that dice? What, for bite of pasta. Come on, just get the gluten out of your life.
I want to stop there for a second. So I want to just, before you move on, I want you, that was so well said, Amie. And I want you to repeat that, because I hear it over and over. Exactly. Oh, I can handle it, or it doesn't bother my stomach, but I want you to repeat that, because what you're speaking to is what can develop later on.
Right. So outside of the immediate symptoms, it's the long-term effects that are going on inside your body, whether you know it or not. So we know that gluten causes leaky gut. So it's breaking down those tight junctions in your gut, and it's causing basically toxins to permeate your gut lining and go into your bloodstream. And then those toxins can wreak havoc all throughout their body as they travel through your blood. And then in addition to that, we know from studies that the gliadin protein molecule that is really essential to gluten. Gluten, its protein molecule is gliadin. That gliadin looks like, in molecular structure, similar to the thyroid gland, if not identical. So I love to give analogies. With any autoimmune condition, you have these groups of soldiers, and these soldiers go out and they're confused. You know, they're not really soldiers you want in your body, because they're really super confused, and they think that your thyroid is a bad guy. And so they occasionally like to go out and attack your thyroid gland. So you said you had really high antibodies. So let's say you had, I don't know, do you remember your antibody number?
I mean, they weren't high like in the thousands, because I know some women have had them crazy. They were in like, I don't know, over like in the hundreds, like 100, 200, 300. It was someone like that. I have to go look at my blood test.
Okay, well, we'll go with 200. You had 200 soldiers in your body. I mean, that's a lot, going out and beating up your thyroid gland. So that's why we can see the thyroid on an ultrasound literally look jagged and smaller in the presence of Hashimoto's, because it's getting destroyed. Now, if I came over to your house and beat you up every single day, would you work well? Like, would you be able to produce content, record podcasts, help your clients? No, you would basically be worthless, and you would not do your job. Yeah. That's the thyroid gland. It's not going to produce the thyroid hormone that needs to produce, nor is it going to convert your inactive T4 to active T3 if it's getting beaten up every day. It's just not, it's not happy. It's not going to work well.
Analogy. It's a great analogy.
So with that, you eat gluten. Here comes the little molecule. Looks like the thyroid gland. Your soldiers say, oh, look, it's the bad guy again. Let's go. Let's go start that war. And they go out and they start attacking your thyroid gland because of the presence of gluten. They just think that here's the bad guy again, right? It's the invader. Let's go. Now, eventually, when your thyroid is pretty much destroyed, those soldiers will go over and find somewhere else. And that's where we see the cascade of autoimmunity. And really, I mean, every time you eat gluten, not only are you launching an attack, you're building your army. So if you weren't gluten-free, I would argue that we could retest you now, and you'd probably be up to 600. Maybe you would be over 1,000. I don't know. But it would grow in size. Your army would grow in size.
Great explanation, Amie. Okay, so some of the other foods. So soy, talk about some of the dairy, some of those other foods that we know that are offenders to the thyroid. If you have Hashimoto's too, obviously.
You know, with dairy, I hate making people miserable, and we all like cheese. So
we do.
if you can keep it to raw milk dairy, organic, grass-fed, and just do the occasional when you really like, hey, it's part of a recipe. You're making a gluten-free pizza. You're making a keto pizza. You want to sprinkle on some mozzarella cheese, right? Sure. Use a good high quality and keep it in moderation. If you're really in an autoimmune flare, that would be when maybe it's a good idea to take out the dairy for a while, at least until your system calms down. But if you're doing okay, then the occasional dairy, not so bad. Soy, on the other hand, is very detrimental to the thyroid. And I also find that it tends to send women into an estrogen dominant state. Now, this is for perimenopause and menopausal women as well, because you might be sitting there going, well, I don't have any estrogen. I'm in menopause, right? Why don't I eat soy to get some estrogen in me? It's because it is just really toxic to the thyroid gland. It downregulates its production. So even if it's not getting beaten up by your soldiers, it still isn't going to work well if we overdo soy. Now, I'm okay with menopausal women doing things like flaxseed, obviously getting their omega-3s, their fiber, all of that. But why do you need soy? There's so many different protein sources out there. Soy isn't even a complete protein. You don't need to eat edamame. I mean, again, if you're at a restaurant and they have the best salted, roasted edamame ever, then go ahead and eat it. But you don't want to do that every day. You don't want to eat tofu every day. So I just tell my people, just, take the soy out. You really don't need it. There are other ways to get, some of the benefits that soy gives us without actually eating soy. And then there's the whole cruciferous vegetable debate, which there is some truth in that raw broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage can be, we term it goitrogenic. So can contribute to the development of a goiter on your thyroid. And again, we don't have to go crazy and eliminate those foods from your life because there's so many benefits of those foods, but just
especially
cook
in
them
menopause.
Down. Right. I mean, you talk about the importance of vegetables all the time. They are important, but just, you don't have to eat them raw. You're not a rabbit. You don't have to sit there all day eating your raw veggies. Just stir fry them, steam them, broil them, whatever you want to do with them. Just break them down, cook them down, and make them break down.
First of all, yes. And there's so many good recipes that you can make with your cauliflower and you can, for me, I love like putting them into like my oven with a little bit of garlic and avocado oil so there's so many things that your air fryer that you can eat them so that you don't have to eat them raw. You're good point. So again, moderation, but yeah, for the most part. And cruciferous vegetables are amazing for helping to balance hormones. So absolutely important. So I want to go back to soy for a second. What about fermented soy? So what about like tempeh or miso?
So fermented soy is different. Anytime we ferment a food, we change how it's going to be digested in our body. And so when we ferment soy, that becomes kind of a different animal and it's more easily digested. And it's not going to cause the same response in our body that eating like, again, a block of tofu would do. So that in moderation is okay. I would say just check your symptoms. Always check in with yourself. So even when I'm working one-on-one with a patient, the most important question that either myself or any practitioner you're working with can ask you is, how do you feel? And if your symptoms are getting worse, if you're staying the same or getting better. So if you're eating certain foods, you're like, ever since I introduced this, I don't know. It's like I put on a couple pounds. I'm more tired during the day. My brain's not working really well. So if that's the case, then check back and say, oh yeah, you know what? I was adding in XYZ food. Let's take it out.
I'm not quiet about this. I've talked about this ever since I've been a nutritionist. I'm not the biggest fan of soy. So like once in a while, you want to have your fermented soy or miso soup. I totally get it. But there are women who are not carnivores or who are vegan or vegetarian who love soy, right? Who want to eat soy. So I do think that that's a great tip, is to eat fermented soy if that's something that you do love and as a source of protein. There are a lot of studies now that are showing that soy can be beneficial for women in menopause. So I want to talk about this just a little bit more because I feel like it becomes confusing for the average person because there are supplements that have the soy isoflavones that women are on. There are studies showing that women should be eating soy because it will help with their hot flashes. We're talking about in terms of their thyroid. Are we talking overall? I just want to get more clarity.
Well, actually, you could probably speak to this better than I can, but I would say anecdotally, here's what I've heard and experienced personally and seen in my patients when they overdo soy. They will become this, it's like a menopausal estrogen dominant. So really what happens is the estrogen effect of soy, when eaten in large quantities, yes, it's over here affecting the thyroid, but just like you said, menopausal women will do it because they heard about the benefits of soy as it relates to their menopausal symptoms like hot flashes. And then just like we all do, we tend to overdo it. Like a little is good, so a lot must be better. A lot more must be better. And that's when I'll see a push down of the progesterone. So now women are experiencing more mood swings, insomnia. They're getting agitated more easily. They're just not chill. They're not handling stress. Well, that kind of, we'll say, fake estrogen, for lack of a better word, because it's not like you're taking estradiol. That fake estrogen effect of soy then comes in and pushes down progesterone. Just like if you did nothing but take estradiol every day, your progesterone will go in the toilet. So, yeah, we want that ultimate balance, because you can be estrogen dominant in menopause if your estrogen is, we'll say, normal. Let's say your estradiol is at like a 50, which is not fantastic. I would like it higher, but it's not totally in the toilet at less than 3. But here's your progesterone coming in at undetectable levels, less than 0.5. You are essentially estrogen dominant. Now, that's not a case where we want to lower your estradiol. That's a case where we want to bring up the progesterone at the same time, making sure you're not doing things that push down your progesterone. So that's what I would say. Again, you might have more insight in terms of the isoflavone benefit on menopausal women.
Thank you. No, that definitely that explains it. And also, because our thyroid is so intricately connected to everything that we're doing, we do too much of one thing, then like you said, it can push down your progesterone, but also it can put your thyroid out of whack. I remember years ago I was on, and this, like, because I've experimented with soy, it just doesn't do well for me. I don't love it for me personally. And I was doing a shake and I was like, okay, let me try it to get my, my protein. And it was 6 grams of protein per serving. This was years and years ago. And I took it, and then the company changed their protein from 6 to 12. Like they upped the amount of soy that was in it. And all of a sudden, I didn't know, I guess I didn't pay attention. I didn't realize it. All of a sudden, I started putting on like a lot of weight. I gained like 10 pounds within 2 weeks. And I'm like, whoa, 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 what is happening? And what happened is it threw my thyroid out of balance. And I didn't even realize it. So I went off the thyroid, the soy, and then I ended up losing the weight. So I just want you, everyone who's listening, I just want you to be mindful of what, again, there are studies, there's going to be studies out there for everything. Really. There's studies. Right. I've come to learn that there's a study to support any hypothesis.
Anything.
Anything. So if you're, being told, well, you have hot flashes, you don't want to, let's say you don't want to take hormones. Again, that choice is always yours. So you're told to take phytoestrogens, which is the soy, which is a type of phytoestrogen, but you're noticing that you're now putting on weight or you're not feeling good. Listen to your body, because your body knows best. You're the captain of your ship. So just be mindful. That's what I always say. I always say, be mindful.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So again, back to the anecdotal, I too went on like, a little bit of a soy kick. And this is even, I think this is shortly after I was diagnosed with thyroid. So this is in maybe my 20s, 30s max. And I did, oh gosh, I did this soy protein. I think I did soy milk and maybe threw in some tofu.
I can't even drink soy milk. It literally, my throat feels like it's closing when I drink soy milk.
Yeah,
it's
even
so
when I say
highly processed. Like
it's so gross. It's just, I don't know.
I can do a little miso. I can do some tempeh once in a while. Like all of that I could do once in a while, right? That moderation.
Yeah, exactly. But like you, I gained weight and I broke out. I broke out like I was 14 years old. It was crazy. So I knew that I had just thrown my hormones way off with my little soy kick. So I'm glad that you mentioned the weight gain, because absolutely 100%.
Yeah. And if you're going to eat soy, please, organic or fermented, but fermented, definitely the non-GMO, please. And then if you can, reach for that organic soy.
Right.
Okay, Amie, I want to move on to treatment. And I want to move on to, I know that you have supplements, that something that intrigued me, which is why I wanted you to come on the show, which is T2. A friend of mine was telling me about it. So tell me a little bit. Okay, so where do we go from here? We know that someone goes to their doctor, they get told, or they go to you, you get told, you're telling them that their thyroid is out of whack. You mentioned that there are many different types of thyroid medication. How does it look for the average person, and what can they do to support themselves with the medication, but as well as supplements?
So with the medication, first, I like to permanent thyroid hormone replacement therapy, because medications, those are the Band-Aids that we talked about earlier, the blood pressure, the antidepressant, the sleeping pills. When we're talking about replacing hormones, you almost have to put those into a different category in your mind, because when you replace hormones that your body no longer makes, thyroid hormone is included in that, you are supporting your body and you're giving it life. You're giving it the hormones that your body needs to sustain all systems, as opposed to medications which band-aid a symptom. So with thyroid hormone replacement, we want to personalize it based on your labs. And I've said this forever, thyroid is very nuanced, and it cracks me up that the standard of care is check this, then give this, period. It's like, no. There are people out there that, like we said earlier, don't convert. So with that population, we might have to go with T3 only, which your doctor, I guarantee you go and ask, you go, oh, I heard this lady on this podcast talking about T3 and I'm on T4 only, and it doesn't really work for me. Can we add in T3? If you are lucky, they will give you 5 micrograms of T3. T3 is also called cytomel or liothyronine. And I always joke, I'm like, that's enough for my dog, but that's not enough for a human to operate day to day. So if you're lucky enough, you'll get a little bit of T3, but you really want that treatment protocol personalized to you. So what if your reverse T3 is elevated? Well, that little bit of T3 isn't going to do anything. And all that T4 is just going to keep pushing up your reverse. What if your free T3, which I like in the upper quadrant of the range? So I don't care what lab you go to, just look at that upper quadrant, split it into 4. That's where you want to be. If your T3 is down here in the basement, oh, it's still normal, but it's in the lower quadrant of the range, you don't have enough T3 and or you're not converting your T4 to T3 properly. So the treatment protocol is all based on you and what we see in your labs. And then we change it up when we retest you and we say, okay, what happened with this protocol? Oh, look, reverse T3 went down, free T3 went up. We're on the right track. Everything is good. And then how do you feel? Symptoms better? Good. Then we're on the right track. If the answer is no, symptoms aren't better, okay, then let's go back to the labs and say, okay, even though these labs look good and look optimal per functional medicine standards, what do we need to change to get this person feeling better? So it's really a kind of a personalized, nuanced puzzle. There's no one size fits all whatsoever. Everyone is optimized on different combinations of medication. They're optimized on different doses of medication. So we have the T4, which we talked about. That's your levo, your synthroid. We have the T3, which is your cytomel and your liothyronine. We also have a category of medication called natural desiccated thyroid medication. That's your Armour, your NP, Nature-Throid from days of old. That's since gone away. So right now we have Armour and Nature-Throid. Maybe in different countries, there are different terms for that, but it's desiccated porcine thyroid gland. It's dried thyroid gland from a pig. And it's 80% T4 and 20% T3. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I just want to do things naturally. I don't want to just use, synthroid and liothyronine. To which I say, well, that natural desiccated thyroid medication is still made by a drug company and still made in a manufacturing facility. So you're not really anything more natural going that route. And what if that's not for you? What if you don't convert well? Then I don't want to give you 80% T4 and only 20% T3 because that's not going to jive really well with your body. So that's just kind of an overview of how personalized treatment can get. Now, you mentioned T2. T2 is present in very small amounts in natural desiccated thyroid medication, but it's not enough. And it's also, the good news is it's not a prescribed medication. You can get it over the counter. So I started studying T2. Big long name for it is 3,5-diodo-L-thyrionine. I started studying this like 15 years ago. And when you look at the literature, look at the research, it is compelling. Studies are showing an increase in basal metabolic rate. So literally the amount of fat that you're burning just sitting here. It's showing improvement in mitochondrial function and ATP production. T2 acts like a cold plunge. It stimulates brown adipose tissue, which is our good fat, our metabolically active fat. Amazing. that it's not the squishy fat. It's not the fat that you're like, oh, I want this gone. It's the brown mitochondrial filled fat that literally anti-ages us. It improves our cholesterol panels. It improves our insulin sensitivity. It just increases our metabolic rate overall. So you have a couple different things. You have the T2 directly acting on your basal metabolic rate, and then you have it stimulating the brown adipose tissue, which also increases metabolism. And it does all of this without affecting your cardiovascular system. So sometimes when we start, so I know you experienced it too, when we start someone on thyroid medication, they might get a few like heart palpitations or even heart racing, where they're, they'll look at their Apple Watch, like, woo, I'm just sitting here and it's 105. Yeah. Okay. Well, we don't want that. We want you to have a better resting heart rate, but not like you're doing cardio while sitting down. T2 does not affect the cardiovascular system. And it also does not affect your thyroid labs. So it doesn't act on the thyroid gland itself. Why is that good for you? Because you don't want to take something that inevitably, if you're working with a non-educated on the thyroid doctor, that doctor is going to look and go, oh my God, you're hyper. Let me pull your thyroid medication from you. And God forbid, let me give you a medication that's going to slow your thyroid even more. Because I've had patients on methimazole for high thyroid function, and they weren't. And oh my God, they gained like 50 pounds in 2 weeks. So it doesn't, T2 does not act on the thyroid gland itself, which is amazing, because then anybody can take it, whether you have a thyroid problem or not. If you just want better metabolism and better energy, anybody can take it. But it is really beneficial for those thyroid patients that maybe are not getting optimized on their current thyroid protocol.
And then we can get T2 from your website, right? So that's like, so if people are going, where do I get this from? So we can get it from you.
Yes. So after those 15 years of research and then actually using it on patients and studying their effects, I decided to manufacture it. So that is my Thyroid Fixer and Metabolism Fixer both have T2 in it.
Amazing. And I'm going to put links below to everything so you can easily find them and that you can go right there. I have to tell you, I want to try that T2. I'm going to buy some from you because I feel like it's something that might be missing. And for me, it's everything you said. It sounds amazing. And I love the fact that it doesn't influence your thyroid labs. That's huge.
Right.
That's absolutely huge. So I love that. So Amie, is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you want to leave with our listeners? Anything that you feel that would be beneficial to them? And then I want you to tell us how everyone can find you. So if they want to work with you, which I highly recommend, ladies, if you have thyroid issues that you know of, or if you're unsure, I highly recommend you reaching out to Amie, because this is what she does all the time. So, and I want you to feel better. So you can leave us with some words of wisdom. And then,
well, thank you for that. No, thank you. You know what? I think the biggest thing that I want to leave people with is to have hope. I mean, you heard my story. I kept going until I found an answer. And I often sit and think, what if I would have stopped? I mean, after 5 doctors tell me that I'm normal and everything is fine and it's just in my head and, just deal with it. That's a decent amount of professionals that, we all look up to and trust with our health that told me I was fine. What if I would have stopped? I wouldn't be here with you today. So having hope and persevering until somebody gives you an answer and a direction to go in that you feel, yes, this resonates with me. This makes sense to me. That's what's going on with me. I'm not talking about any, again, slamming Instagram a little bit, but any Instagram, celebrity or influencer that says that they have the next answer and this protocol. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about really, getting into yourself and saying, okay, now that I've listened to Andrea and Amie talk, maybe I do have a thyroid problem. I need to check this. I need to get down and dirty with my labs. But keep persevering and don't give up, because you do not have to live with these symptoms. I mean, even when we're talking perimenopause, menopause symptoms, right? You on my podcast, you're giving women that hope that even though there are 100+ symptoms, we can bring them down to 0, or maybe, 1 or 2 still hang out. We can deal with that. Come on. So it's having that hope that you can get your life back and feel better.
I love that. And one of the things which I wanted to talk about in your podcast, I actually forgot. So here, I'm going to mention it here, is your 8 doctors is not uncommon, by the way. We did a survey called Doctor Visits. And for those of you who haven't filled out my survey yet, please go fill it out. The link is below. I want to hear from you. And what we found, Amie, is that about 20% of women have seen 5 or more doctors in order to make the connection between perimenopause and menopause and how they're feeling. So yours wasn't necessarily menopause related, but it's the point that so many of us have to go to so many different doctors just to get answers. So let's stop that. Let's cut out all the doctors that we're trying to go to, and also the amount of time that it takes to get the answers. I mean, how long of that journey was it from the time you went to your first doctor to your 8th doctor? How many years was that?
Well, I went pretty fast, so I only wasted about a year of my life. Yeah, because I was like,
okay, a year.
not
That's a long
acceptable.
time, right?
But I have patients that are like, I think I've been dealing with this for 10 or 20 years. I mean, really, yeah.
Right. So like the amount of time and money and just everything. So go to see somebody who knows what they're talking about. That's why I love doing this podcast and having women like yourself on, and experts like yourself who can help women so you can bypass all of the years and suffering and all of those good things. So we're going to put that below. Amie, how can people find you online and book an appointment if they want to?
Absolutely. So they can go right to dramiehornaman.com. You can click book a call. This is where it's free call. We're going to be going over your health history, what you've done, how many doctors you've tried. We asked that question too. I should do a total, have my data girl go through those. I can do a total, look at the average. But yeah, this is where, we have a conversation with you, find out where you're at, make sure you're a good fit with us as well, and then really guide you into which program is going to be right for you. But we prescribe to all 50 states. We do thyroid, we do bioidentical hormones as well. And so we got you covered. We got you covered in all states and Canada.
I was going to say, can you do international? Like we have a lot of listeners in Australia and Europe and Canada. Can you do international as well?
We can't do international because we can't prescribe to like UK, Australia, but we can prescribe to Canada. So with compounding pharmacies and whatnot, we can do that. So there are, I would say, most provinces in Canada we can prescribe to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, Amie.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Amie. That was amazing. She is such an expert when it comes to thyroid health. And I love that she has such great stories of helping women get better and take control of their health and symptoms when it comes to their thyroid and other things as well. So check out her links below. Be sure to fill out our survey, our doctor's visit survey. If you haven't already, I want to get to 1,000 responses. So every one of you who take a minute to fill it out makes a difference for me. So I'd be super grateful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it, because the more you share shows you care. Please leave a review. I read all your messages. I appreciate them. And again, it helps to send out our podcast to more people. I appreciate you, and I'll see you at the next interview.